All right. Well, welcome to another edition of our Create the Ripple podcast, where we trust the niggle and we tell the truth. Now, my guest today, I was actually thinking about this, Raeann, as we were chatting in our pre-record chat, that you and I interacted in a significant way when I was in a similar situation last time, which I thought was highly entertaining. And I'm curious to see what that's all about. We'll have to dive into that sometime. But I know that if you live in Edmonton and you're involved in personal development at all, my guest today will not be a surprise, but I will not give it away. So I usually ask my guests to introduce themselves, to sort of share from their hearts, their bio, how they got here. And yeah, with that, Raeann, call's yours.
Thank you. Yeah. So my name's Rae-ann Wood-Schatz, and definitely been a good student of personal development for many decades. So the short version of my story is came out of university with a degree in psychology and had always thought that perhaps I might want to do postgraduate work and had a dream of being a lawyer, which I've now come to discover was never probably even my dream, just you know, really grounded and collectively scripted in that would be the best way to. I definitely wasn't going to be a doctor because I couldn't stand the sight of blood. And, so if I was going to be successful, I'd probably need to then either be an engineer or a lawyer. And I totally sucked at math. So thought maybe I'd end up in law school, but I was really burnt out on post-secondary. I'd gone straight from high school into university. And so I decided to take a little break and was working in a nightclub and sharing my story of I needed to take a rest from school. And she just happened to be a volunteer coordinator of a women's shelter. And so she said, well, maybe you should think about doing a bit of volunteer work, maybe take a journey into the psychology part of life. And being that I had that background, she thought that might be a good fit, which then created a trajectory of almost just over a decade of working in crisis programs. So went from volunteering to employed, and then graduated from domestic violence to sexual violence. And so I was tender age of 30 something and felt like I was at that place where I don't see myself doing this for another 30, 35 years energetically. I just knew that it was going to not be my jam. And so didn't have a clue as to, I thought I'd done everything right. I was married, I had 3 kids, I was burnt out and miserable, miserable from the perspective and point of view of, is this my life? And my husband at the time had been my childhood sweetheart, who was a fun party guy when I was 16, but fun party guy when you're trying to raise a family, and
Mhm.
wasn't always that great either, I had come to discover. And so I took Personal Best, so it was called Personal Best seminars back then, and got halfway through the second level and was like, wow, this is amazing. This is truly transformative, and felt like I was getting clearer on why I was sort of creating what I was creating and what was going on for me, and also got really clear that I could see the value in this work for people. And so I approached the owner of the company and said, I'd really love to do this work. And they have had quite a stable team. And so he was like, yeah, no, we're good. Like, thanks. And glad you love it, but no. And so I just didn't go away. I finished the rest of the programs, and then I volunteered. I became a serial volunteer. So every course has a team of graduates that support. And so eventually at some point things started to grow and expand for him. And he was looking to expand into Edmonton and needed somebody. So he asked me if I was ready to put my money where my mouth was, and how committed was I to teaching these concepts, and was I committed enough that I would leave my steady, secure job. So was I ready to I'd separated from my husband at that time to make the leap of faith and move my family and come to Edmonton. And so in 2001, I put my money where my mouth was and came up here and started to run the courses here under the umbrella of Personal Best. So we operated under the Personal Best umbrella for many years, and then transitioned away from that brand, and eventually I transitioned away from the Personal Best company, and have been operating under my own brand for quite some time, and have grown and expanded. Teach that core program still. It's still, I think, one of the most solid personal development programs on the planet, and have incorporated a bunch of other things. We teach some shamanic programs now, and I'm a hypnotherapist and do couples work based on my experience of my own failings and successes in coupling, and spent a lot of time training with the Gottman Institute. And so, yeah, so just have continued to bring transformational work to other humans, because I believe that there's a place for all of those other things I used to do, and feel really strongly that we all, no matter where we are in our life, benefit from self-awareness and doing our own work, whatever that looks like. So,
I agree.
yeah.
As you were talking, I was remembering, moments from when I did the course, and there was certainly a part of my life where if there was a personal development course, I was there.
Right.
I could not get enough of it, and have certainly, seen that um, experiences show up in my life, and how it's, shaped where that's gone. I was
Mhm.
thinking specifically to, that quote you have at the back. What are you pretending not to know? And I can remember at the time that one of the things I used to say a lot of was, I know,
Mhm.
mostly because I had yet to come to a place where I would be honest with myself and my own shortcomings and failings. And I think, like a lot of us, especially in our 20s, it's kind of scary. And we're trying to figure out who we are, what we want, where we're going, what beliefs, how we learned from our parents and our family and our upbringing that we actually align with and want to keep and maintain.
Mhm.
And that was significant for me, the 3 days I spent, doing the personal programs with you guys, and how that's continued. And the number of times I'll say, I don't know, and I think, no, I do know, I'm just afraid to say what I already know. And
Yeah, and I often say to people, out of all the phrases we could have hanging at the front of that room,
mhm,
when you think about all of the possible things that would reflect personal transformation, why is that the statement? And it really is because the default for us lots of times when we bump up against the harder stuff, both internally and externally, why is that happening, or what's driving that choice? The easy default program is I don't know. And of course, the second I don't know comes out, everything stops. Then we move into confusion, and then we stop looking. And then when we stop looking, we stop finding. And when we stop finding the answers, we stop moving. So it's the one of the core principles. And then that weaves through the other three levels too, as people catch themselves. When I ask a question, they'll go, oh yeah,
oh
can't
yeah,
say, and then the pause and the introspection, and then and we don't always have the answer. We all know what I don't know feels like. It feels literally like a block, or it feels like a wall. But if we don't look on the other side, or we don't look to break through, then we just stand staring at the wall. So it's the not that we don't have moments of confusion, it's the unwillingness to stay stuck in it. And I often will then just say, so what if you did know?
yes, I remember. What if you didn't know? And I think even now, the podcast as itself is more. This is the third version of what I've put together. And now the tagline is, to trust the niggle and tell the truth. And the niggle is that annoying thing,
Mhm.
feeling, sense, right?
Mhm.
And then the other part of tell the truth is, it's not necessarily the telling the truth to someone else, although that's certainly part of it. It's knowing what the niggle is and then telling the truth, because I tend to talk to a lot of people like yourself who are like, well, I know I'm supposed to be doing something, but I'm burned out doing this and I want to be here, right? And it's sort of that, winding path to get to, living in alignment and in integrity, which, I know is a big word for you, but integrity, for me has really come to being like, it's like a living and a breathing thing, right? It's just, is what I'm doing in work lining up with what I want to be doing in life, is how I'm parenting, is how I'm,
Mhm.
and as you and I shared earlier in the call, I'm just basically following my bliss, which for me is like, ooh, there's no anxiety right now. There's no negative sensation. okay, I'm going to stay here, because sometimes the path isn't necessarily clear
Yeah.
what you're supposed to be doing or where you're supposed to be going. Are you looking for a simple, easy weight management solution? I thought you might be. I know I was. I also wasn't interested in something with a ton of gimmick without any science behind it, which I know a ton of companies have. The company I'm about to share with you actually has 12 of their own clinical studies. And for me, with my science-based background, I needed to know that. I also needed to know the product worked. And so I was introduced to the group that, however, had 125,000 members in it, all supporting amazing stories of weight management, weight loss, hair regrowth. Oh my gosh. Not surprising though, considering the product itself has won numerous awards in and out of the nutraceutical industry, which I think is pretty incredible. Pretty exciting as well is the fact that it's made with their patented technology, 7 international patents on the collagen in this product, made entirely from chicken sternum. Chicken sternum, why? Because it most closely mimics the collagen that our own bodies create. Now, I'm a 36-plus-year-old woman, and so making sure that I'm maintaining and taking care of and trying to reverse the clock so I can age gracefully is super important to me. Making sure I'm taking products that are safe, making sure I'm taking products that are approved, and making sure I'm taking products that I would be happy to share because there's integrity at the top. So this company is a values-based company, which I absolutely love. Not only do I love that, but I love the flavors. This is mango. Mango's my favorite. This is from the Modera company, which you've heard me talk about before. 1 simple spoonful a day. In the morning, I can add it to my coffee if I feel like it. I don't add the mango, I add the vanilla to my coffee. But I can add a simple spoonful to my day. It tastes awesome. It tastes amazing. And it's helping my body to maintain the figure that I've worked to get to. Why not? Now, if you're looking for some weight management, this is going to help curb appetite. It's going to help your body to function as best. And we know that when you do something like that and you make wiser choices, your body says thank you. This is part of an entire system called the Lean Body System. I will make sure to post information for that below, or you're welcome to scan the QR code, which I know is going to be somewhere in the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, head over to modere.ca. That's MODERE, modere.ca, or modere.com, and use code 5579027. Again, 5579027 to save $10 on your next order, regardless of what you put in your cart. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the listen. Going.
And I think I often replace the word truth with authenticity, and that simply being, it allows people the ability to recognize, because truth we look for sometimes in the facts, and authenticity is more, my truth could be different than your truth. So if we're both standing in authenticity, if we're both being self-aware and authentic in what's showing up, then I can stand in mine and you can stand in yours. And it's funny, I just had a session with a new client recently who is 33, but at 18 won the daily grant, like a lottery win.
Oh, wow.
Where it's not a large sum of money, but it's money every day. So she's never had to have a job. So in 15 years, she's never had to work, but she doesn't have millions of dollars. So she has what most of us would have be a nice, steady income, but she's now 33 and sitting in that space, reaching out for support from the perspective and point of view of, I'm sort of past all the, well, I've traveled and I've done some things that the win allowed me to do. Why am I here? Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And more importantly, who am I supposed to be? Because I'm not discovering that through some of the traditional channels that people do, which is through career, through work, through, and hasn't even chosen relationship, because it's like, I'm just off busy doing these other things. So it's an interesting context to sit in. I was, sitting in it, trying to imagine what that might be like to, I know there are probably other people that get lucky or not lucky. She even said those words, it's a blessing and a curse on some level, but who doesn't have that, Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich talked about one of the most significant, or I think it was in Outwitting the Devil, that one of the most significant fears that people have, the number one fear, is poverty.
Yes.
And then how that drives everything. So
Which is such a scarcity mindset. So I'm listening to a new book, Wolf Pack by Abby Wambach, and she's talking about, that the scarcity is literally, it's ingrained, especially in women, right? So when we're working, we want a piece of the pie, we want a seat at the table, but it's a seat rather than saying, what if we just made our own table? What if we added all the seats we needed to
Right.
the table? And it was really interesting because I've been thinking about this scarcity mindset for a number of years,
Mhm.
really diving in, wondering where that came from. I come from cautious parents who instilled great values around money and creating wealth. But what does that mean now, right? And why do I think about, well, I'll buy the extra just in case? And I'm like, where does that come from? And how long has that just in case been showing up? And then listening to her talk about that it's not just the way I was raised, it's an overarching concept, certainly for men, but definitely more for women, right? If we fail, then the concept is maybe we're not deserving of a
Right.
seat at the table. And I
Yeah.
was like, wow, I got to like rewind and re-listen. And I get that sense that,
And it's funny
that,
that metaphor. Do you know Laurel Langmeyer, the
yes,
millionaire maker? So she talks about um, the big table, and her metaphor is as a child, when the whole family gets together, and the little card table or
yeah,
the little coffee table, and all the kids sitting around that, looking at the big table and wondering, yeah, when am I going to be deserving? When am I going to be invited? When am I going to be, you know, big enough that they're going to say, join us at the big table? So similar, her thing is that it's not just gender based, it's just human based, is that we're invited to sit at the small table, but yet at the end of the day, when is that time and who chooses?
and who chooses? Yeah, that was significant. And I've been thinking a lot about that. I mean, obviously right now, become more aware of these things when I am creating life physically, because I know that, we have memories and those memories are immediately passed on. And, so all of a sudden I start to think about, oh, where was that? And can I clear that before? you
Right.
know? So, so interesting.
Mhm.
Wow. So I know you're still doing your courses throughout the challenges and the changes and navigating the virtual landscape, which I know has been really challenging. But let's say someone is sitting in there listening and they're ready for shifts. And usually, as I shared with you, I tend to attract influencers or people who would like to be influencers or have more of an influence. So, tell us more about the programs because I'd love to gently nudge my listeners if they haven't already, found your programs to consider them.
Well, and what I often say to people is that, and I know you and I were talking earlier about being really good students of personal development.
Mhm.
It's the beautiful part of, it's not intended to try to fix anything or anyone. It really is meant to be for people that are truly ready to level up, and recognizing, I'm a big fan of Bruce Lipton. I don't know if you follow him at all.
Mhm. I
The
do.
biology of belief is kind of, he comes from a science-based background, and his
Mhm.
focus is helping us understand that, he uses the metaphor of a computer, which I love, which is, we were born, third trimester of pregnancy, everything is there, the hard drive is in play, everything to run that computer is ready to go, and it's at birth that the reality is, without programming, there's no programs. So you could have the best computer ever, but it's not going to do anything without, you need a program for walking, you need a program for talking. But as we go through life, we also develop programs around relationships, we develop programs around money, we develop, the whole thing is about programming. And science would say by the time we're 12 years old, that hard drive is full.
Mhm.
And so then we find ourselves in our 20s and our 30s attempting to run life, from that old program. And there are some that are probably helpful and survival based and supportive, but a lot of those programs don't serve, the program of not good enough, the program of sitting at the little table wondering, when am I ever going to get to the big table? And maybe I didn't get to the big table until I had my own table, and then there was just me at the table. And there's so many things that play a part. And
Mhm.
so the whole premise of the course is to help people through experience, through activities, through concepts, spends an important, a really significant amount of time just taking a deep dive into what are my programs. Because again, science tells us the majority of what drives us, and that is, it's running in the background. So you might have sort of the program of abundance that you went and got somewhere. So you took a course, you bought the program, whatever it was, and you're running the abundance program, but the scarcity program is, with the virus, is running
Yeah.
exponentially faster,
Yes.
and having more impact. But you thought, oh, I X'd that program out. I'm pretty sure I closed that program. It's like, actually, no, you didn't. Actually, you just sort of wiped it, you scrolled it, but you didn't actually get rid of it. So if we don't have awareness of where it is or what it is, then we actually have a much more difficult time in the delete, in the true delete, the true wiping. So that's really the crux of it. Is it's an experiential process that allows people to take a deep dive into the deep end of their own lives and their programming, and figure out what's serving them and what's getting in the way.
I love that. What's serving me and what's not serving me anymore. Because I think sometimes, at least when I started the programming, there was a lot of guilt and shame. And I was like, wow, I didn't know. And I'm like, well, that's the point. You don't know. And we had just, filled up the hard drive, and it's nobody's, fault. But now I think, I had that belief and it got me here, but is it serving me now? Or is that something that I need to let go of? And I mean, as you and I, chatted beforehand, it's become sort of one of these things that when I discover something that's basically hiding in the blind spot, it makes me burst out laughing, because I'm like, how long has that been there? And, that's at least how I, choose to deal with it, and then invite it to sit with me and, thank it and release it and carry on. And some of those are deeply ingrained. Some of them are, I thought I dealt with that already. No, apparently there's a layer hidden under this one that we're going to deal with that again today, and
Yeah.
continue to release it.
And how much impact that has on our results and what we're creating. It's that whole, also understanding the power of accountability, which is grounded in, the perception or the belief that life just happens. It's really that part around, I'm an active participant. Life doesn't happen to me, it happens through me. So how I choose to respond. And more importantly, that part of for me, which is, like you said, when you can move to observer and get out of judge and this, whatever the program of self-deprecation might be, and just go, so how did I create that? Not, how did I create that? It's like, how did I create that? Or why did I create that? But more from a curious place, so that then if I can understand it, I can clean up those programs, and then no need to continue to repeat, no need to continue to attract those things, those scenarios, those people, those situations, that then we get to reinforce those old programs. And again, all at a less unconscious level, which is why it starts to feel a lot like things are random, instead of things are organized, and they're organized a lot based on how I'm showing up and what's coming through me into the, the field of energy.
And I can certainly remember when I was originally starting out in personal development, it felt like there was so much work to do, and that was a little bit overwhelming at times, because I felt like, wow, I'm never going to stop learning. But then you do start to adjust some of those programs, and then you come to a place of realizing, you're right, I'm never going to be done, but that's okay. And it's actually kind of fun. And
It's funny, we shifted the brand. I mean, personal best, our old tagline was unlock your personal best and live it.
right.
And our true sort of belief was that come and do 4 programs of a process that is incredibly well designed. I'd love to take credit for the design of it. I'm simply a steward and a teacher of it. I was about 10, I think, when EST started, which was kind of the beginning of it all. And so it's the understanding that somewhere in there, you'll hit your personal best, come do this work, take 4 courses, and then get out there in the world and be shiny and amazing and brilliant and bright. And then when people say, how did you get to be so, make sure you tell them all about us. And then we really came to an understanding that as long as you have a pulse, I hope that there's a humbleness around. It's why we all incarnated, was we all came with the intent to grow and evolve. And if you're not growing, if you're not evolving, then you're dying.
Mhm.
So it's a constant leveling up. And that there is no, it's like the 4-minute mile, that would have been deemed impossible. So somebody would hit that and go, okay, I've achieved my personal best. There's nothing else there. Roger Bannister said, I think there's more. And then within weeks, months of him breaking that 4-minute mile, then hundreds of runners were starting to do it, whereas nobody was doing it because there was that belief of, well, now you've hit the ceiling. So
Mhm.
what else? Whereas I always say, if I'm not at least once a year, I'm in someone else's classroom, and people are after decades of doing personal development work. And as a teacher of personal development work, why are you still doing it? It's like, I can give you lots of examples in my life where things aren't perfect. So therefore I have much to learn and grow through. And so even if it feels like I go to a program and they're teaching a lot of the same concepts, I don't go with, oh, I already know this. I go with,
Mhm.
where's my nugget? Where's the
Yes.
piece that's going to come out for me? There's going to be something here for me. I just need to stay open to it.
Yeah. Hey, it's Candice. I hope you're really enjoying the show. I know I certainly am. I want to give a big shout out to one of the products that I absolutely love using. So this is 36-year-old skin, and I am in love with it. Yes, I am wearing a teeny tiny bit of foundation. I'm wearing a little bit of eyeshadow, but in general, I want to go like really, really close. This is my skin. Phenomenal, right? So I recently started using a product called BioCell. BioCell is liquid collagen. Now, there's a lot of buzz about collagen right now, but you want to find one that mirrors closest the human kind of collagen. I was super impressed with this particular collagen. This is made with only the sternums of chickens. So that's the, the sternum bone of chickens in a place that has already ethically and humanely taken care of these chickens. And so we're basically using a part of the chicken that would normally just disappear and be used for other things. I have not got into the collagen world before now, mostly because I know that a lot of the collagens out there, especially the powdered collagen, they have things like cow hooves and pig hooves and noses, and I just wasn't interested in putting that sort of thing in my body. I do try to live a more plant-based lifestyle. This is one of the few products that I allow to have animal in it, but I absolutely love it. I'm also really impressed with the company behind it. They're a values-driven company, and if you know from watching any of my shows, values matter to me. They've got a number of values. One, to be disruptive in the industry, and you know me, I like to be a little bit irreverent and go against the grain once in a while. I also really love that one of their values is humility and compassion, because those are huge and important to me. So if you're looking for a place to spend your money, and no, it's not an arm and a leg, no, it's not an MLM, this is affiliate marketing, which means if you did decide to purchase this product, yes, I would in fact get a small commission, which has nothing to do with your products or your purchase or the price point on the product, to be honest with you. It is simply 10 to 36% for me, depending on how many of this awesome product that I get a chance to move. Also, I'm paid daily, which I think is pretty amazing. So if you're somebody who's looking for some collagen and you just want to be your customer, I have got a $10 code. Drop a link or a comment below, or feel free to message me and I will share with you my link so that you can get $10 off of your first order. If you are somebody who's thinking, hey, I would like to get some product and also like to break into the affiliate game, that's a passion for me. I love teaching women and men, but mostly women, how to master the affiliate game. Once you learn how to do it with one company, you can do it with anything else. So I hope that you're enjoying the show. And without any further ado, back to the show.
I love that because I often, think that especially, now when I'm like, okay, got that. That's awesome. But yeah, the listening for the nugget. And sometimes, like with this book, I started and thought, okay, this is good. It's a good reminder. And then when that nugget came out of nowhere, I was like, okay, we are like finishing this entire book. And, it's, there's something magical about that too, to go back to that place. Um, back when we can go to events, there was a yearly event that I would attend. And for a number of years, it just sort of felt very monotonous, but I went because it was the thing to do. And then the last couple of years, I've shown up and said, I'm going to go and pretend that I'm just brand new. And I'm going to come with the joy that it's brand new And as soon as I did that, the event did not seem like 3 days. It felt like it was 3 hours. And I remember thinking, there's something about this staying in this learning mode. And I mean, it's been easier because I have a 6-year-old now. So everything is new and everything's exciting. She walks down the street and I think to myself, you are seeing sunshine, lollipops, roses, rainbows, and there's a unicorn behind that tree. And I think, what if I approached,
Everything
walking,
growing, right?
right? Yeah. What would that be for my life? And, she doesn't worry about what's behind the next tree or whether or not she'll be able to tackle, whatever's around the corner. She believes she's still capable. And um, I like thinking about that. And that's certainly how I begin to approach my personal development. What unicorns behind this next page?
Right. I've got a
Right.
6-year-old. I know your daughter's 6. I've got a
Yeah.
6-year-old neighbor um, who I have a fairy garden, and she took an interest last year in my fairy garden, and such an interest that she went home, and because I told her that fairies like sparkly things, and she went home and she came over with a coat hanger full of her mom's costume jewelry and a pair of scissors, and she's like, we're gonna cut these up and leave all the spark. And I said, well, we probably should check in with your mom first. And so she's like, no, she said it's fine. Anyway, I texted my neighbor and she goes, yeah, it's fine. It was in a garage sale. Nobody bought any of it. But we spent probably 2 or 3 hours in the experience of it, but in the conversation of her asking those 6-year-old questions around, magic and how to inspire the fairies to want to come to our garden and the elementals. And her mom said to me later, some parents might have done putting such crazy things into a child's head, but her mom said to me a few months later, thank you for bringing magic into her life. Like, she's just so inspired and ignited, and she wanted to have a fairy theme for her birthday. And so she got books about fairies and the whole piece of just the whole being in awe with life. And yeah, I love that what if we approach lots of things in our life from the fairies and unicorn energy of magic. Yeah.
Right. Because it's an interesting thing, right? That perspective quote, right? It's how you look at it. And I think about that a lot. I'm, I know it was in terms of dealing with, with the personal best program that we took and that kind of thing that really inspired this concept, or at least planted the idea in my mind. And it's certainly been on my mind since, this concept of radical responsibility, right? Which, has been, memed by, the wound isn't your fault, but the healing is. And I really have been thinking a lot about that, because I mean, that's the whole, what are you pretending not to know? And everything happens through you, right? And for you. And even in some of the situations I find myself currently in, I think, wow, I'm really good at creating myself some challenges. Let's start
Right.
creating some easy stuff. Right. But, you know, um, we didn't come here to have the easy street. We came here to learn and grow and impact and change. And I know that's certainly something that you're actively doing. I remember when you launched the integrity seminars, and I remember thinking, that's a really big word.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking, well, it's that, because it is such a big word and it's thrown around rather lightly and usually to accuse, but there's something about creating a life of integrity, as you and I were sharing, where there's alignment in every part of your life. Um, we're coming up to the end, and I'd love to just sort of open up the floor for you to share if there's something on your mind or your heart for the listeners. And yeah, just love to hear what you're thinking.
Yeah, I think it's the part around the grace of, we're in a time of transition in many different ways. And if we take anything of what we've talked about today into that larger context, is that we can either then push back against what is, or we can learn how to grow inside of it, that we can make choices that allow for transformation and for evolution. And I know that I had at a stage of my life where hormones are a consideration. And so I was going to see a naturopath about doing some work on bioidenticals and getting my hormones addressed. And I had to do some blood work. And it went back to my doctor, and I wasn't anticipating anything from her, but she called and said that my liver enzymes were extraordinarily high. And so I'm a big fan of Louise Hay and people that believe in mind body. And so I decided I definitely rarely manifest in the physical. And that, so I went and looked, and it was constant complaining. And I thought, isn't that fascinating? Because most people that know me know that I'm not a complainer. I am always looking for the gift, the lesson, the shiny piece. And then I thought, I'm not complaining on the outside, but in the last 12 months, how many times have I caught myself complaining on the inside? When is it going to be over? When is this going to end? What is the impact on, I've got an 86-year-old father and not spending time with him. Am I keeping him safe? Am I not keeping him safe? Like really just sat in that, what, there's an aspect of that fundamentally feels true. And so have been more willing to have some of those outside conversations around what the challenges are. So yes, also aware that there's gifts and lessons in all of this, and we can transform, and we need to tell it goes back to what you said about truth telling. We need to tell ourselves the truth about what's going on for us, and more importantly, what we need to be able to keep working the energy, because there is a bunch of stuff going on outside of us right now that's outside of our control. And the only thing we can control is how we respond, how we think, how we feel, and how we act. So staying committed to ourselves and to each other inside of that.
That's powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting that you say not complain, because I remember when someone said to me, they're like, "You're not very positive," and I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh, it's subtle." And again, those blind spots, those opportunities, like you say, you don't often manifest in the physical. So when it does, you're like, "I should look that up. I should check on that. I could check on that. I could check and see what that means, right? And how powerful that is."
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
Rae-ann, it was an absolute honor and a pleasure to share
Having me.
with you today. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate the wisdom and the gifts that you've just so freely given both me and my listeners today. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Awesome. And
Thank
for
you.
the rest of you, you know the drill. If you got value out of this, like, love, share, comment. It really does have a huge impact on what we are doing and the ability for us to share this message far and wide. And thank you so much for listening and sharing space with me today.